Welcome back to Real Estate Therapy. I'm Cynthia Cummins, and I'm not a licensed therapist, which is going to become really clear in just a few minutes. Um, but I'm really lucky to have with me today an extraordinary human being and an extraordinary real estate agent from San Francisco, Mike Shaw. And Mike, will you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for having me. So, as you said, my name is Mike Shaw. I am a longtime resident of San Francisco. I was actually born all the way across the bay in Oakland. And
Mhm.
so I am a local of the Bay Area and have lived in the city since 1990. And I've been practicing real estate in San Francisco for the past 27 plus years. I'm about 6 weeks shy of my 58th birthday. And I work for a wonderful company, Vanguard Properties. I love San Francisco, so I'm so excited to be here with you today to talk about real estate, talk about San Francisco, our lives here, and what excites us about this wonderful place. My partner and I live in the Mission currently, but I spent many, many years living in the Dubois Triangle area of San Francisco as well. And my office is right on Castro Street. So I've been in that office for 27 years. I started there and I'm still there. So
I
that's
remember when that used to be Herth, right?
correct.
Was the
Yeah.
name of the company. And when I think of Herth, I think of orange, right? All the signage was orange, which is one of my favorite colors.
I love orange too. Yeah. And then they switched to blue about midway through. But yeah, they did start as orange. And Herth was a wonderful company. It actually was founded, Ray Herth was a pioneer in the gay rights movement uh, all the way back, starting in the 70s. And he started the first savings and loan for gay people. It was called Brown Bear
Mhm.
Savings and Loan when gay folks couldn't get loans because they were red tagged or blackballed, however you want to say it.
Mhm.
He was the first corporate sponsor of the quilt and of the AIDS walk here in San Francisco. And so it was a wonderful legacy to move into coming to Herth Real Estate. And when Vanguard, the owners of Vanguard are also gay, when they bought Herth Real Estate, one of the things that was really exciting to them was that they were, in fact, buying some of this legacy and they bought the building, the business, the parking lot, everything right there on Castro Street. Lucky for me because I love the office, and we got to stay. My business partner and I, Bernie Katzman, who I've been with for about 14 years, got to stay in place when Vanguard bought Herth.
That's and now isn't it right on the same it's on the same block. It's on the same block and maybe almost right next door to where Harvey Milk had his camera store. Is that right?
Correct. There's one building between us, between our office and that office, and in fact, that building where Harvey Milk's camera shop was part of the sale. So the owner of Vanguard owned that building as well, and there's a parking lot behind it. And fun story: when they filmed the movie Milk
Mhm.
on Castro Street many years ago, they used the parking lot and our office as a staging area for the filming of that. And I'll never forget it. We were all across the street, and the set, the street was all set down, and there was a scene when James Franco and I guess it was Sean Penn. I don't really remember, but there was a kiss and on screen kiss, and so
Right.
everybody was quiet on the set, and and they kissed, and the whole street just erupted, just this roar of cheer and applause. It was quite something. I have goosebumps thinking about it, the filming of that movie. So yeah, it's fun to have that legacy as a part of where I work every day.
Right. And that, that whole part of San Francisco's history is such an important part of our history as human beings, as far as I'm concerned. And I, it's endlessly fascinating to me how it's almost unreal. It's like I'm in a dream a lot of the time when I'm in San Francisco. I'm moving through these spaces, like you're moving through this space where Harvey Milk was, right? And then later, where a movie was made about Harvey Milk starring James Franco and Sean Penn. And each block is packed with such history and resonance. It's one of the things that has always made me feel like not a tourist in my own town, but sort of like a little bit like Alice in Wonderland. Like I'm moving through this enchanted space. I don't know.
I
Um,
agree. I absolutely agree with that. I went to school. I started at Berkeley and then I left Berkeley. It was too close to home. And I ended up going to the University of Arizona. And I remember coming back on a spring break or something and staying in an apartment right by Alamo Square. And I was in college and I didn't really know the city that well, even though I grew up across the bay. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in San Francisco. But I remember walking out one morning to go get coffee at Alamo Square, and this was in the mid '80s, and thinking to myself, I've stepped into a dream. Like this is literally stepping into a dream. I am going to live here. And of course, at that time, I was like, I'm going to live in a Victorian mansion on Alamo Square. That was my
right.
dream. Uh, and and yeah, I get to live that every day. And I know that San Francisco has gone through its hardships, but I've been selling real estate for 27 years. So I've been through the dot-com boom and bust of 2000. I've been through the financial crisis of 2008. And, we who love San Francisco, we just hunker down, we give even more, and believe we believe that San Francisco will shine again. And even in its darkest times, I tell everyone who will listen that my life here in San Francisco is great. My day to day has not changed dramatically. Yes, there are more open, empty storefronts, etc. But my friends are all here. We're enjoying the things that San Francisco has to offer. And we're living in a place that, for me as a gay man, is one of the few places I believe in the world where I can just live my life as Mike and not be reminded that I'm gay, which is why
Right.
I went to Herth Real Estate in the first place. I was running a sales company and traveling all over the United States. Um, and had just come out and was constantly being reminded, not in a positive way, that I was a gay
Right.
man. And I wanted to work someplace where I could walk in every day and just be Mike. And I think that's what's wonderful about San Francisco is that we all get to be Cynthia and Mike and Harvey and just be and be respected for that. And I love that about our city.
That is so well said. And and even so, for me, I've lived in the city for more than I think it's almost 40 years now. And I've been a realtor for 35 of those years. And um, but one as a straight woman in San Francisco, here's sort of my little different perspective on that was being able to be in a place where, just like you said, you could be Mike. It didn't matter. You could be Mike, I can be a woman. We don't have to have labels. We don't have to behave a certain way except to respect and appreciate the people around us and enjoy them for who they are. Just no preconceived notions. I mean, I'm painting kind of a rosy picture here. That's not to say we don't have trouble, but and the diversity alone, um, or like in the real estate profession as a female, to be able to be in a profession where it wasn't a given that I would be hit on or um, be put in a position to use or abuse, my power as a woman. It was, and real estate's one of the few professions where I think a lot of women have a lot more authority and autonomy, and and do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? I
I
don't think I'm
absolutely know what you're
articulating
saying.
very well.
No, I think I absolutely, and I agree with you completely. I think San Francisco is one of the few places where we can all um, really shine and be respected for that. And I think San Francisco, the ideal of San Francisco is very special. I think as time has gone on, things have changed. It As you said, we are experiencing some rough edges, but I do believe that the spirit of San Francisco is alive and well, and I love that Nancy Pelosi called it, San Francisco values.
Mm.
I love it, and I think it's what's kept me here. Quite frankly, it's what's kept me in real estate and kept me in San Francisco. The folks that are in my life on a day to day basis all subscribe to this idea that um, we are special, and that's not special over anybody. It's just special in our own way. And when we live in a world today where difference is demonized by so many folks, it's great to be in a place where diversity and differences are celebrated, and I love that. And I also love that I'm in a place where, as a privileged white man, and I'm very aware of that, that I can be educated and helped and taught. And I have a lot of people in my life that say, this is how we're doing things today. There's some change that needs to happen, and to help guide me in that, in a way that is loving and respectful. And I absolutely love that. I sit on a board for a nonprofit, and it is primarily cis white men. And there is a non binary person on my board who really wants to change that and came to me and said, how can we put together a campaign to make this board more reflective of the folks that we serve? And I love that I'm in a world that, where that is prevalent. And so,
Right.
yeah, I love San Francisco.
Well, people think about that. Well, I was thinking about wanting to talk to you about San Francisco and our mutual affection for San Francisco, and I came across this Maupin, Armistead Maupin dialogue from a tale of, what is it? Tales of the City.
Tales of the City. Yep.
Um, I want to read it,
Great.
if you don't mind. Let's see.
Not at all.
So they're talking. I don't know who these people are. They're talking about San Francisco. Uh, what about San Francisco? What about it? Did you like it? She shrugged. It was okay. Just okay? She laughed. Good God. What? You're all so alike here. How so? He asked. You demand adoration for the place. You're not happy until everybody swears undying love for every nook and cranny of every precious stem. Whoa, Missy. Well, it's true. Can't you just worship it on your own? Do I have to sign an affidavit? He chuckled. We're that bad, are we? You bet your ass we are. I love that.
That's fantastic. It was probably someone from Los Angeles.
Right.
All of my Los Angeles friends feel that we are that way, that we have an air about us around San Francisco. But you are either a lover of the city or you're not. And for those of us who are, it is an undying love. My partner and I, he feels the exact same way, and we're not bashful about it. Our love of San Francisco. Little side note: I was fortunate enough to actually list and sell Armistead and his husband's house several years ago when they left San Francisco. So I'll just give you a quick little story. So my business partner, Bernie, got a call to come meet with Armistead and his husband to talk about selling their house. And we it was on a holiday weekend. I think it was Memorial Day, and I had this cute little red, white, and blue necktie on. And we walked in and we sat down in their living room, and Armistead Maupin told stories for 2.5 hours. He just
Wow.
told stories. And afterwards, there's a long staircase down to the street from his house. And we got to the bottom of the stairs, and I did one of those high kicks in the air. And I had said to Bernie, my partner, I said, I cannot even believe we got to do that. What a gift that 2.5 hours was. And those are the little magical moments in real estate that I love, and those magical moments about San Francisco. He
Yeah.
told us, all kinds of stories that I won't repeat, but about people and stories about his house and parties that they'd had, and it was quite magical. I mean, obviously he's quite a storyteller, so it was a gift.
Well, and there's so many great stories. I mean, that's one of the things that's so wonderful about real estate is that we get to witness people in these moments in their lives, these important transitions, and we get to hear them. They tell us about what they know and about what they've experienced. I mean, I was just thinking about a couple of things that I witnessed just came to mind. Like there was an elderly woman who was selling the house that she was born in near Golden Gate Park, and it was on this block that back at the turn of the century was um, a big water slide. There was like a big water park, and it spilled. The slide actually spilled onto this block, and so when they had been remodeling houses on that block, they kept coming up against the foundations of this water slide. And but she told me about how as a kid she would just like walk over to the park, which was a half a block away, and yell for her brothers who were playing. I mean,
Yeah.
you just love that. Or another client there in Upper Market near the Castro who had a house. When they started working on it, they found um, a lot of cash underneath the floorboards and a guide to the best bordellos in California. And
Oh my gosh.
it was like from the 19th century. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
My partner when he started taking the chimney down in his Victorian house found a whole stash of gold coins and those um, medicine bottles. And I mean, but when people tell stories, that just brings it alive. And I often think when I'm walking down the street about all the lives of these houses that we see, these houses that are 150 years old now or 100 years old. What have they seen? What have those houses looked out on when they look out on the block?
Yeah, absolutely. We have photographs at the office on Castro Street of Castro with horse and buggies, and Castro Street with streetcars going up and over to Noe Valley. And um, you can actually go to the back of our office. There's a cottage, a Victorian cottage, and if you go up the stairs, you can look to the left and see three other cottages in the back of the lot, and those are the buildings that were originally on Castro Street pre 1906.
Wow.
So this was Old West Castro Street. And then in 1906, after the earthquake, they moved them to the back of the lot and built Edwardians in the front.
In the front.
And so it's wonderful. I take people back and I say, this is what the Old West looked like here on Castro Street. I had a client who bought a house, a 2-unit building actually, down by San Francisco General. And in the back, there was a carriage house. And in the loft of the carriage house was a perfect carriage. I don't know how they got it up there, but it was there all intact. And it was really something. It was probably 100 years old. And it was sitting up in this loft of a garage that used to be a carriage house. So lots of fun
Right.
stories here in San Francisco, and then lots of my partner can tell you where the Church of Satan had their had their meetings, and there's all kinds. I sold a place in Haight Ashbury that was used to be a brothel, and another place on Lion Street that was a speakeasy. So there's lots of wonderful history, and then of course being in the Castro. For me, it's really important to remember the history of the early LGBT movement, right? And what was happening in the Castro back in the day, and hearing stories about that. Of course, a lot of the folks who would have passed that history on to me died in the AIDS crisis. I was
Right.
lucky.
Yeah.
I was just young enough that I just missed it. Um, but for those who were around, it was wonderful to hear stories about what Castro Street was like back in the 70s. And so, yeah, lots of wonderful history here in San Francisco. In fact, before Stonewall, there was a riot here in the Tenderloin. Transgender streetwalkers, if you were, had a riot in a cafe here that actually started the movement before Stonewall in New York. So,
Huh.
little interesting fact.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah,
Uh, the Yeah, I love. I mean, like the speakeasies. I sold a building. This is, I don't know, 20 years ago, in a traditionally African American neighborhood that was starting to gentrify, and the 2 unit building that I was representing the buyers of had been known as the hole in the wall, and the whole garage level was had been sprayed with asbestos, like, and I think not for fire reasons, but I've always heard that they would put asbestos in those spray guns to do plaster finish because it would keep the gun from clogging. And anyway, it was hot pink with gold glitter in it. The whole garage, the whole garage. And there was literally a hole in the side of the garage where everybody would come in the tradesway and into the hole to I mean, I would just love to have been a guest at those parties.
yeah,
I would have
absolutely,
loved it.
absolutely.
Um, and um, yeah, it's endlessly fascinating. Well, so I I never I grew up in San Francisco, in that my dad was stationed at the Presidio when I was a baby. And so my first year on this earth was in San Francisco. So there's all these pictures of me at the Golden Gate Bridge and in the Japanese Tea Garden and at the Palace of the Legion of Honor and the Palace of Fine Arts. I have no memory of any of this.
Sure, of course not.
But they say, somebody says that you feel the most comfortable in the place where you learn to walk. I don't know whose theory that is. But when I moved back to San Francisco later, I certainly felt very much at ease almost instantly. And it was a dream to me. I never thought I would live in San Francisco. I grew up in Virginia. I mean, San Francisco was like, you just saw it in the Rice-A-Roni ads, right? And so, first of all, I never thought I'd live in San Francisco. And I certainly never thought I would be a real estate agent, nor did I understand what a privilege it would be to sell real estate in San Francisco. I mean, not only is it a privilege, but what a high level job and lucrative. I mean, um, so that's a long way of asking. That's how I got into real estate, because I was um, laid off from the job I had in public relations. And my boyfriend said, if you're going to be miserable, you may as well try and make some money. Why don't you get your real estate license? And that's how I kind of backed into it. I would love to hear. how you got into real estate.
Sure. Well, absolutely. I have a fun story actually. So as I mentioned earlier, I was running a sales company, traveling all over the country, opening up offices. It was a direct sales company. It was very good old boys kind of Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross kind of
Oh,
situation, and I had recently come out. I was way up in the ladder, so people couldn't be outwardly uh, discriminatory to me, and I was well liked, but it was still not a comfortable situation. And my partner at the time and I decided to buy a place. So we found a condominium in DuBose Triangle, and our realtor was a gentleman by the name of Rick Rock, who you know well, I'm sure.
I
He's been in
do,
the business
yeah.
for years. His partner, his life partner, his husband, was my boyfriend's mentor. They were both attorneys. And so we had, not only was he helping us find a home, but we'd been to their house for dinner and gotten to know them well. And in the course of buying our place, Rick said, I need somebody to come work with me. And by the way, I work at an office on Castro Street, right? Our office is on Castro. I mean, I knew that because I'd been to his office. So I thought, this sounds amazing to me. I love architecture. I love history. I love interior design. I love art. I love people. I'm great at sales. And it's on Castro Street. This is a win-win. Sign me up. So I talked to my boyfriend at the time. He said, "Do it. We'll float things for a while because obviously in the early days you don't make a lot of money." And I left that sales job after being in the company for almost 9 years and went to work for Rick. The funny story is that the listing agent of that condominium was Bernie Katzman, my now business partner. So small world. That's how I got into real estate and how I ended up on Castro Street. And I've never looked back. And like you, I think it is an amazing privilege. I always dreamed of living in San Francisco. Even before I really had come to terms with being gay, I just knew it was the place I wanted to be. The architecture, the history, the we would come over and go to, concerts in the park and, smoke dope and do the things that teenagers do. And I just thought it was Shangri-La. I thought it was amazing.
Right.
So the idea that I would somehow then make an amazing living and a career out of investing in this city that I love so much and that was so appealing to me is you're right. I actually haven't thought about that, Cynthia,
Mhm.
in quite some time, but it's a huge gift to be able to be here and a privilege to help people. I'm helping some folks right now who are first time home buyers. I love nothing more than giving people their first set of keys. It's really magic. Magic. I love it.
It's great, and it's so wonderful to become. I mean, I feel like I sort of become like a member of their family, only the most benign and loving and supportive member of their family without any baggage, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And do you experience this moment? I mean, especially I love working with buyers. I've gotten a little more listing heavy as my career progressed. God, I can't even speak. Um, and but buyers, when it's over, when they close, um, there's like this withdrawal that goes on
Absolutely.
because we're not talking every day. And I'm
I
sort of
say that
thinking,
to
how
them.
are
We're
they?
going to formulate a very, very serious short term relationship. It's going to be an intense and serious short term relationship. And then, I try to, many of them have become friends and I try to stay in their lives, but I absolutely experience that withdrawal because during a transaction, we're on the phone multiple times a week, right? You speak to those clients far more than you speak to your extended family members, for instance. And so there's definitely that withdrawal. I will tell you a little story too about working with folks. It was you had asked me to think about two stories, and this is one of the stories, which is that I was working with some very, very dear friends, family, in fact, chosen family, a couple, on buying a tenancy in common in the Haight Ashbury neighborhood. And the transaction got pretty sticky. And the wife of the couple is a therapist, and she's sort of my spirit guru. She never raises her voice. She just has this incredibly calm demeanor about her. She just sort of exudes calm competence. And up until the time that I was working with them, real estate had been a job, a career. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. It was something that I was 100% invested in. But through the course of the transaction, of working with them and having this moment where I said to myself, I don't care what happens here for me. I want to make sure that I do the best thing that I can for them. These are people that I love. I want them. They really want this house. I want them to get the house. And I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that that happens. And my mindset shifted from this place of being uh, a realtor to being of service. And
Mm.
every transaction from that place forward has been this moment of how can I be of service to my clients? And it changed not only their experience, but it changed my experience. Like I get to do something really special with people um, that is not often portrayed in the world of real estate. You know, if you look at the modern families and the places where we are portrayed,
Or
it certainly
Glengarry
is
Glen Ross, you know.
right. Exactly. It's one step above a used car salesman sort of thing. Not to say anything about used car salesmen, but I get to do something that's very special, and I love that about this career that I put together because it is about serving folks and making sure that they have the best experience possible. I love it.
It really is that. I mean, unlike you, I had absolutely no sales acumen whatsoever. Like I'm I've said this a few times. I couldn't even sell Girl Scout cookies as a kid. And so I had to really early on decide that all I was doing was serving, because I couldn't do it otherwise. And it took me a while to figure out. And sometimes I think the people we work with haven't figured this out, that buying a home or selling a home, it's not like buying a 3 pack of socks at Target, right? It is not the same thing. You can't do analytics like you can on sock sales. You
Right.
can't, it's hard to quantify. A spreadsheet only goes so far. Have you gotten this? Have you ever had, I mean, I've had a lot of this recently, clients who, buyers especially, who give me a spreadsheet
Oh, absolutely.
and it'll be like, color coded and, must haves, nice to haves, deal killers, ranked in a scale of 1 to 5 on each item. And then they have a point system. And I'm like, oh no, I can't even begin to grok it. But it's so human. It's so
Yes.
human.
Absolutely. You're right. And I actually, in those spreadsheets, sometimes they tell me exactly what the price differential has been in any given street for the last 3 weeks. When an engineer comes to us, we say, spreadsheets don't get property. That's my mantra. It just doesn't work that way. So it really is uh, a human venture that we get to embark on. I'm just going to quickly say that I have two dogs, both of whom just decided to wake up from their
Okay.
very deep slumbering naps. So I think we're fine, but there may be a little background noise. If there is, I'll let you know.
I think we'll be fine, Mike. And if they want to come join us, that would be fun too.
They might. They may.
I Do you remember your very first transaction?
I do.
Okay, so with a buyer, do you remember the first buyer?
I do. I
Um,
remember the first buyer. I don't remember my first listing, but I remember my first buyer.
what? what did you learn from that?
Oh my gosh. What did I learn from that?
Or what surprised you? What surprised you?
Well, I think I was sort of in this daze of, oh my gosh, I can actually do this, which was, I wasn't at all certain that I could. I'd never done it before.
Right.
So
With
that
me, it
was
was like, I can't believe someone's actually letting me do this. Right.
exactly. Somebody actually wants me to help them do this. It was at Opera Plaza. It was a condominium at Opera Plaza. I
Oh,
remember that.
I know Opera
Um,
Plaza.
and uh, yeah, and I also remember, so I remember that, and then I remember my first single family house listing. Actually, I do remember it. It was on Church Street, and it was such an amazing feeling to have that sort of trust. It was different with the buyer, but the first listing that I got was a real, um, you know, sort of an affidavit to my abilities. And I was so proud to stand on broker's tour and have agents walk through the door and to present this property
Mhm.
as I was starting out. So, it is always amazing to me that folks, and in my case, most of our business is referral and repeat. So I don't work with complete strangers, but
Right.
they're strangers. I haven't really met them, most of them, that they will entrust us with this huge investment of theirs. It's always, I never take it lightly. I think it's an honor, and I'm always somewhat amazed every time it happens.
Right.
Fortunately, having done this as long as I have, come on, guys, um, I, I do have a pretty good reputation in the industry, so I'm happy about that.
There is that honor, and it's always humbling. It's always humbling. But then, this is one of my favorite parts is when I have a pretty new listing to be there on broker's tour to greet my colleagues. And wow, if it's a good one, I'm like the most popular girl in town. Everybody says how fabulous I look, how great it is to see me, you know, how did you do it? How did you stage it? You know, I can't help it. It just, it goes right to my head and heart. I
I,
walk around on a cloud, you know.
I hear you 100%. There's a manager who, that goes around. He goes to all the open houses and all of the broker tours. And whenever I have a hot listing, he'll walk in and he'll say, "How does it feel to be the it guy this week?" and yeah, it feels good. Absolutely, it feels good.
Yeah, and then every now and then there's an agent who maybe is a little standoffish or unfriendly, who now they have a client for the house and they come through and it's like, "Oh, Cynthia, I'm so glad to see you. It's been so long." I'm like, last week I was standing next to the copy machine and you just shoved me out of the way, right?
Oh, how quickly the tables turn.
Right. And then,
That's
then
funny.
of course, if the listing doesn't sell, then I'm there thinking, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And we're so spoiled because we aren't in a market where things sit for a year. Um,
We are quite spoiled. We are, yes, we are very fortunate to be here.
we are,
Absolutely.
and I try to spoil my clients as much as I can, and yet buying real estate is really hard. You have to work for it.
You
The
absolutely
the
do.
client has to work for it.
It is emotional and it's intense, and we can only do so much. But yeah, you're right. And it's interesting to watch how different people go through the process differently. Fortunately, I know you and I share this because uh, I've seen how you work for years, but we are as no drama as they come. I just don't believe in any sort of histrionics, and so we can bring a very steady hand to the table, but you just don't know how people are going to react when faced with this multi-million dollar decision. And sometimes people react differently at different times. So you have the same person that in some situation is calm, cool, and collected, and the next minute is completely losing it. And so, one of the things that we have to do is we have to sort of we have to wear many hats, right? We have to hold many different emotional states in this process. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. There's never a dull day. Every day I wake up, I think, I had a dear friend who passed a while ago, and she said, "Dear God, what great surprise do you have for me today?" And I
Right.
think to myself going into this, what great thing is out there for me.
Yeah. And it's ever changing. Um, I mean, in the job that we do, a lot of times people will say, well, like, what do sellers usually do? Or how did
Right.
they price this house? And I'm like, um, there's a million different ways to price a house. It's it's uh, uh, it's an individual case by case thing. There's just no standard. Usually, there's no standard.
That's right.
And what I find, one of my favorite sayings, which comes from the therapy and psychology world, is if it's hysterical, it's historical. So, like when you have that calm, cool, collected CEO who's just been steady and nothing moves them, and then suddenly they're having a total hissy fit over the toilet seat that didn't get changed out or something, that's something to do with the bathroom they grew up in, or that mommy didn't love them, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Exactly. Right. Well, it is something that we have to learn as realtors, is that, it's rarely about us, right? It's rarely about us. And so that just comes with age. I have an experience. I have a younger agent working on my team who's fantastic. And it's one of my favorite things in the world to do is to mentor at this point. And that is just unfortunately something that we have to learn with time, you know.
yeah. Yeah, because I think there is a tendency, at least this is, I think one thing I've learned is that um, I do the best that I can, and I bring a lot of skill and experience and care to what I do. But I cannot control the market. I can't control the weather. I can't I can't make other agents or other buyers or other sellers do what we want them to. It's it's not my personal responsibility, that. And early on, it was difficult to figure out where the line was between what I was responsible for, and really what I was responsible for was just listening to somebody complaining about whatever it was. It wasn't
Absolutely.
that I had had done something wrong, but
Absolutely. No, that's we good realtors are good listeners. That's our job, That really is our job, is to listen. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think I can't imagine doing anything else. First of all, I've been doing this for 27 years, but the thing that I love most about it is that everyone that I meet comes to this with something different. And so there's nothing boring. There's nothing monotonous about selling San Francisco real estate. It is
right.
always uh, something that's new and different. And even after 27 years, though the situations are all very similar, I don't think anyone's going to throw a curveball at me. They all come with their own sets of personalities and circumstances, and that's what makes each day fun. Is that I don't sit behind a desk and stare at a screen all day.
Yeah. But as we're talking, what I was thinking was about Armistead Maupin's uh, Tales of the City. As realtors, we are up close and personal witnesses to so many tales of the city. I mean, we have, I can drop and give you 20 right now, right?
Absolutely.
With
Yep, we
no
do have
problem.
stories and we hear them. We we have great stories.
Well, speaking of, I always like to ask for a story, and you've already told me a couple of them, but do you have a particularly entertaining story for us today?
I have a wow story, sure, from real estate.
Okay.
So years ago, this will probably be about 15 years ago, I had a listing in the Mission, single family house, a good friend of mine's house, and he had listed it. And I happened to also at the open house meet a young couple that were in tech who ended up buying the property and using me as their realtor. So I was representing both the sellers and the buyers on the property. The transaction was going great. The buyers were really excited about it. The seller was going to be moving out soon. I think we were 5 days prior to close of escrow. It's Saturday morning at
Oh
about
no.
7 a.m. and I get a phone call from the seller and he says, Mike, come to my house right now. And I say, why? And he said, just come to my house. So
Oh
I
no. Oh
pull on my
no.
sweats, 7 o'clock Saturday morning. I drive down to his house. I pull up. There's a police car in front. The glass paned front door is broken. I walk in, and the way the house worked is you walked in the front door, there was a foyer, and then a hallway back to a primary bedroom suite behind the garage, and then a staircase up. So I walked up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs, there were French doors to the dining room. They were broken. The window in the dining room was broken. And I looked down the hallway, and the ceiling to the bedroom was on the floor.
The
So
ceiling.
the ceiling had caved through and was now on the floor, had literally caved in.
Oh
So
no.
just as that all hit me, the client came walking out and I said, what in the world happened? And he said, Mike, the police were chasing someone across the rooftops of our houses and they got to our roof. And then next to us was a 4-story building. So they couldn't go to the next roof. So they literally swung themselves through the dining room window. They were asleep. Everyone was asleep in the house. They threw themselves through the dining room window, fell across the dining table. The chair broke the French doors, ran down the front stairs, and saw me come out of my bedroom. So he ran back up the front stairs, down the hall, into the closet in the bedroom, through the hatch in the attic, and then fell through the bedroom ceiling.
Oh no.
And then ran down the stairs. And by this time, the police were there and they caught the guy.
Oh
And,
my
um,
god.
and so I'm standing there with this complete chaos thinking, I have to tell the buyers
Yeah,
who
I
I
have to
also
disclose this.
represent that this has just happened. So I literally, I mean, really, it turned out to be fine because I called the buyers and I explained the whole situation to them. And I guess the guy was on something, I don't know what, something that eliminated pain and allowed for superhuman strength and feats of magic. The hole to the attic, the hatch to the attic in the closet was like, this big. And who wouldn't even know it was there? It was just all so random.
Oh
And
my
so I told
gosh.
this to the buyers, and the buyers said, Mike, what are the odds of that happening twice? And I said, said,
That's
that's
the right
exactly what I
attitude.
thought. That's exactly what I thought. But, I thought for sure they were going to say, cancel the contract. We're out of here. They lived there for years, and then sold and moved on to Noe Valley, but they lived there quite happily. But that
And
was
nobody came
nobody was
through the
hurt.
ceiling again.
No, no, nobody came through the ceiling again. Nobody broke through the windows. They lived a very happy life there. And it was just this random, and really that it happened right before close of escrow and that I was representing both sides was crazy. But anyway, it all happened. It worked out in the end. Everybody was happy and it never happened. There wasn't a repeat. So
Yeah,
everyone
we
was
don't want
happily.
people to think that there's like people running around on the rooftops all the time
No,
in
we
the
don't.
city.
No, and I wondered whether I should tell the story, but it was a fluke. I have lots of fun stories too, but that one I love that story because it was just how could it's just so unbelievable, and yet there it was.
I love stuff like that. I mean, I've had, I've seen lots of things like that happen. I mean,
Yeah,
not exactly like that, but kind of fluky things. And you know what? It made me think of a little story of my own when I lived in the lower unit of a 2 unit Victorian on Divisadero. And so it was one of those railroad flats, the long haul. And I was, I think I was expecting my first baby and I was taking a bath. It was the evening in the bathtub, just relaxing. And I hear all these sirens, right? And um, there's a pounding on the door. And my husband, my now ex husband, went to the door and said, what is it? And it was a whole bunch of firemen were standing there at the door. And they said, there's a fire in the house next door. We need to come in. So my husband yelled, Cynthia, the firemen are coming through. And, but, I just stayed in the bathtub with the door shut, but I could hear their boots coming down the hall and I could smell them. I could smell that burn smell on their
sure. Yeah,
coats and stuff. And so they ran down the hall and they ran up the back to get onto the neighbor's roof and they put the fire out and then they came back through. And I just did the whole thing from the bathtub. But
you never got out of the bath. I love it. I love it.
I
Oh
loved
my
it
gosh.
that I could smell them. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, so fun to talk with you.
Thank
And,
you.
but first, I do want to not let this slide. You were talking about your friends in Los Angeles. Um, there's that, I want everyone to hear, if they don't already know it, that Herb Cain quote about Los Angeles. And I think it goes like something like, it's good that all the people who prefer Los Angeles to San Francisco live in Los Angeles.
Exactly. Exactly. Said by a true San Franciscan.
For sure. So, Mike, can you tell everyone how they can find you?
Sure,
Um,
absolutely. So the website is bernieandmikehomes.com, bernieandmikehomes.com. My Instagram is talk to Mike with a two, with the number two, talk number two, Mike. Those are the easiest ways. And then Mike Shaw, San Francisco Realtor on YouTube. So there's lots of ways to follow me. But thank you so much for having me today, Cynthia. This has just been an absolute treat. I loved it.
yeah, let's do it again. Thank you so much for your time, and that's it. Happy
All right,
evening.
it's a
All
wrap.
right,
Thanks,
bye.
Cynthia. Bye
Mhm.
bye.